My husband wanted to repay his comrade for saving his life. He gave our newborn son to his comrade and lied to me, saying the child had unfortunately died. Later, I unexpectedly learned that our son was alive and went to confront my husband. All I got was one sentence: "This is what I owe him." I wanted to find my child, but met with nothing but obstruction from my husband. In the anguish and regret of losing my child, I withered away and died. I never expected that upon waking up again, I would return to the day of childbirth. You like giving children away? Then you can be the one to end up childless. I was awakened by pain. My body reacted before my brain did, letting out a startled cry. I tried to move, but the high, swollen belly pinned me down, leaving me unable to budge. "What's wrong with you? Are you going into labor?" The man hurriedly pushed the door open and entered, still holding 2 lunchboxes in one hand. Sharp eyes under sword-like brows, tall and slender, clad in a military uniform radiating righteousness, his entire being brimming with the spirited vigor of youth. "He is my husband, Jasper." Yet, how has he grown younger? My heart was filled with questions, my eyes fixed intently on Jasper without wavering. Lost in thought, he had already reached the bedside, his face unable to conceal anxiety and concern. My body lifted as he picked me up from the bed. The crisp scent of soap lingered in my nostrils, and his stern concern echoed in my ears. "You didn't call anyone when your water broke? Do you know how dangerous this is? It could have been a tragedy for both you and the baby." Passing through the living room, I caught sight of the calendar hanging on the wall. My heart was shocked, and my fingers instinctively tightened on the rough fabric. I was actually reborn. I had returned to the day of my childbirth. On this day in my previous life, I suffered for over 2 hours before giving birth to this child. Right after birth, the child was given to Jasper's comrade-in-arms. He lied to me, claiming that the baby had insufficient vitality from the womb and unfortunately passed away. I believed it to be true and blamed myself for being incapable of protecting even my own child. Later, I accidentally discovered that the child was alive. When I tried to bring the child back, Jasper stopped me in every way possible. Faced with my questioning, the man remained calm and indifferent, as if it were only natural. Ben lost his chance to become a father forever to save my life. This child is what I owe him. He will only have this one child in his lifetime, but we will have many, many more. Sophia, forget that child, as if it were never born. It's better for everyone this way. Better? Better for whom? It's only better for you. That child is the one I carried for 10 long months and labored to bring into this world, not a token for you to repay favors. Jasper and I had a huge argument, and from that day forward, I embarked on a journey to find my child. But Jasper was exceptionally capable and rapidly climbed the ranks, some might even say he had the power to shield the heavens with his hand. He always managed to cut off the clues about the child in time, leaving me with nothing but an empty basket. I lived in the pain and regret of losing my child, and passed away in depression before I even turned 40. Heaven has eyes, and it actually let me live again. This time, I absolutely won't allow anyone to take my child away. The shock of rebirth overwhelmed me. My heart raced wildly, and even my breathing grew a bit rapid. No, I'm about to give birth, I can't just have Jasper by my side. Wait, I struggled through the pain in my lower body, making a difficult request: go call my family and ask my mom to come take care of me. I'm really scared giving birth for the first time. I looked up and could only see Jasper's clean jawline. He lowered his head and looked at me with a light laugh, comforting me. It's the busy farming season now, your mother-in-law probably doesn't have time to come take care of you. Don't be afraid, I'm your husband. With me here, you and the baby will be safe and sound, he said, while gathering the things needed for the delivery. My heart sank. Our neighbor Grace, hearing the commotion, kindly opened the door and asked, "Sophia is going into labor, do you need any help?" Grace was the political commissar's wife, warm, generous, and fair in her dealings. We had a good relationship. With her here, it wouldn't be easy for Jasper to try anything shady. Thinking of this, a flicker of hope reignited in my heart. Then, trembling, I pleaded with her. "Sister-in-law, could I trouble you to accompany me to the hospital? I have no experience with giving birth for the first time, and I'm so nervous right now that my heart feels like it's about to leap out of my chest." Sister-in-law Grace put down what she was doing and gave a hearty laugh. "Sure, I'll go with you. You're first-time parents, so it's natural to feel flustered. I can help so that fewer mistakes are made." Seeing sister-in-law Grace readily agree, half of my anxiety slowly settled back down. The next second, Jasper's cool voice came from above my head. He rationally and reasonably declined sister-in-law Grace's kind offer. "Sister-in-law, your Timmy is still young and can't be left alone. What will you do with him if you go to the hospital? The hospital is busy with people coming and going, and it's not good for a child to stay there too long. Timmy is sister-in-law Grace's youngest son, 2 years old this year, at an age full of lively and active energy." Jasper's words made some sense and touched Sister Grace's heart. A mother always thinks for her child. Sister Grace began to hesitate. Jasper reassured her again, completely dispelling her thoughts of going to the hospital. "I've already visited the hospital in advance and am very familiar with the situation there. Besides, as a man, I can always take good care of my wife and child. Don't worry, sister." Sister-in-law Grace nodded repeatedly, clearly having been persuaded. The other half of my heart, which had settled a bit, was now hanging even higher. Driven by the pain, I reached for sister-in-law Grace's hand and said pitifully, "Sister-in-law, I'm in pain and scared. Would you mind accompanying me to the hospital?" I kept tossing and turning as I voiced my fears. The problem is, Jasper had planned this so secretly that no one knew, and even if I spoke up now, no one would believe me. After all, what kind of normal person would secretly give their child to someone else without telling their wife? Influenced by this thinking, in my past life, I firmly believed that the child had passed away. If I hadn't accidentally seen that remittance slip, I would never have known how selfless and noble my husband could be. He was willing to give away his own child to someone else. I was in so much pain, drenched in sweat, my lips pale, looking utterly pitiful. Sister Grace couldn't bear it and was about to agree. "All right, then I'll..." Well, well, well. Loud crying was coming from Grace's sister-in-law's house. A 7 or 8-year-old boy ran out to call for someone. "Mom, the little brother pooped his pants and got it all over the bed. It stinks so bad." Grace's sister-in-law's expression changed, and her heart immediately weighed in one direction. She smiled awkwardly. "Sophia, with all the family matters at your sister-in-law's place, I truly can't leave for a moment. Once you give birth, I will definitely visit you at the hospital. Having Jasper by your side puts my mind at ease. It's precisely because of Jasper that I'm worried." The baby's cries grew louder and louder. Sister-in-law Grace quickly turned to comfort the child. Jasper carefully adjusted his hold on me, still wearing that "everything is under control" expression. "Don't be scared, I'm here with you." I was in too much pain to speak, and I glared fiercely from within Jasper's embrace. Wrapping both arms around his neck, I sank my teeth hard into the tender flesh at his neck. Hiss. I heard him draw a sharp breath and felt a deep sense of satisfaction. This child is also his, why should I be the only one in pain? I've gotten a small measure of satisfaction, but my heart keeps sinking. That sense of despair, knowing danger lies ahead but being unable to avoid it, is nearly drowning me. But I can't give up. Heaven has given me a second chance, absolutely not so I can walk the same old path as before. I let go of Jasper's neck and leaned on his shoulder to gather my strength. Failing to pull someone, the hospital is my last chance. We walked down the stairs through the family quarters, and a car was already waiting for us at the gate. Jasper held me securely as he walked steadily. Many people on the road saw it and cast envious or jealous glances at me. Jasper is capable and considerate. I heard he took half a month off to take care of Sophia. Why can't my husband learn even half of Jasper's goodness? Why is Sophia so precious? Back when I went into labor, I was still working and gave birth right then and there. When I went home, I had to carry my child and even a half basket of corn. In my past life, I thought they were just envious and full of hatred, and it felt incredibly sweet. But now, hearing their words only feels full of irony. In the eyes of outsiders, Jasper, the good husband and excellent man, would actually snatch my child away to repay a favor. When I discovered it, he even had the audacity to ask me to have a few more children. In my previous life, due to my absolute trust in Jasper, I never realized how dangerous it was to give birth without any family by my side. This time I was still left isolated and helpless. The only difference was that I knew about his plan. In the car, Jasper hugged me softly and comforted me, urging the driver to drive faster from time to time. His concerned expression made it seem as though he wished he could take my place, playing the part of the caring husband to perfection. I closed my eyes to rest, the corners of my lips curling into a faint, ironic smile. Jasper, with such anxiety, are you truly concerned for my and the child's safety? Still worried that something might happen to the child and you can't repay your comrade's life-saving kindness? As long as the child isn't given away for a single day, your conscience will torment you for that day. We didn't speak a word the entire way. I was taken into the delivery room. The glaring fluorescent lights hurt my eyes. Drawing on my past life's experience, I focused on adjusting my breathing and timing my efforts. I don't know how long the pain lasted. I just felt a sudden loosening sensation below, as if something had slid out. Wah! The baby's clear cry rang out only once before abruptly stopping. Why isn't the baby crying? I struggled to prop myself up, seeing only the hurried back of a nurse rushing away. Child, my child, where are you taking my child? I wanted to chase after them, but the doctor held me down firmly on the delivery bed. He wore a mask, revealing only his eyes, which held a familiar look of pity. Comrade, your child had no breath from the moment it was born. It's not advisable to experience extreme joy or sorrow after childbirth. For the sake of your health, let your husband handle the child's affairs. My heart grew cold and filled with anger. It turned out that the doctors and nurses who attended my delivery had long been bribed by Jasper. No matter what state I was in after giving birth, they would all claim in unison, the child had died young. In my previous life, I passed out from exhaustion, completely believing Jasper and the doctor and nurse's words. But now that I've been given a second chance, I am fully aware of Jasper's plan. So, I don't believe a single word they say. My child, wait for mommy. Mommy will definitely find you and bring you back. With fire in my eyes, I slapped the doctor's hand and questioned him loudly. I clearly heard the cry of my child. Where have you taken my baby? The doctor didn't get angry even after being hit and shook his head helplessly. Several children were born around the same time as yours, so it's easy to mistake the cries. You're still young, focus on recovering your health. You can have another child in the future. Familiar words, a familiar tone. The doctor's face kept shifting before my eyes, sometimes morphing into the faces of the other women. Sophia, we can have another child if this one is lost, but if we lose our home, we lose everything. Don't hold a grudge against Jasper. It's not easy for him to give the child away either. A life-saving debt is greater than the sky, how could he be at peace without repaying it? Then there's Jasper, looking impatient. Sophia, how long are you going to keep making a scene? Ben saved me but can never have children of his own, this is what I owe him. I should give him a child to compensate and provide for his old age. I clenched my fists, crumpling the bedsheet beneath me. It seemed like Jasper was the only one struggling in this world. He carried the weight of Ben's life-saving favor, tormented by guilt. So he had no choice but to give away his own son, just to ease his own conscience a bit. He was so conflicted, so tormented. And I, as Jasper's wife, did not joyfully and eagerly offer our child to Ben. Instead, I kept insisting on bringing our child back every day. I made the household chaotic and unsettled, causing Jasper endless frustration. I was utterly and unforgivably wrong. Those sisters-in-law just flap their lips and try to persuade me to give up my child. Since it's not their child, they can naturally advise me to be generous. Jasper unfastened his pants, shamelessly and condescendingly offering to give me another child. He says it so lightly. He doesn't have to endure the hardships of a 10-month pregnancy, so he can easily use our child to repay a debt of gratitude. In exchange for his peace of mind, and to gain a reputation for gratitude. But no one ever asked if I was willing. All the grievances, heartaches, and unwillingness from both this life and the previous one erupted at once. Suddenly, I felt filled with strength. That is my child, and no one can take them away. I grabbed the doctor by the collar, using his support to sit up, and roared hoarsely like a vengeful spirit. How dare you say my child is dead? I need to see them alive or find their body. If you have nothing to hide, why won't you let me see my baby? The doctor's face flushed red as the tightened collar choked him. A nearby nurse rushed over to pry my fingers loose. Cough, cough, cough. The mother's emotions are too agitated, quickly bring a sedative. The doctor struggled free with great difficulty and rasped out orders to the nurse. The nurse swiftly handed over a syringe and forced me back onto the bed. The doctor pushed the plunger, and the sharp needle gleamed coldly as it came closer. No, I must not fall asleep. In my previous life, I searched for my child for 20 years but never found them. If I don't manage to intercept Ben today, I will still repeat the tragedy from my past life. I took a deep breath, my mind racing. Just before the needle pierced my skin, a sudden idea flashed before me, and I shouted toward the door. Jasper, why are you here? The doctor instinctively looked back. I suddenly stood up and bumped my head right into the nurse's chest. The nurse stumbled back a few steps, clutching her chest and groaning in pain. I snatched the syringe and plunged it deep into the doctor's shoulder, right into the flesh. I put so much force into it, as if I were unleashing the grievances of 2 lifetimes. As a doctor, he had no sense of medical ethics. Not only did he help Jasper steal my child, but he even tried to administer a sedative to me? You should first have a good taste of its flavor. The sedative quickly took effect, and the doctor fell to the ground, sleeping soundly. I struggled to get out of bed, placed a thick layer of toilet paper in my pants, and leaning against the wall, slowly walked out of the delivery room. Outside the delivery room, people were coming and going, yet there was no sign of Jasper anywhere. Is he in such a hurry to give the child away? Before I had taken a few steps, the nurse I had bumped into in the delivery room ran out and grabbed me, her tone sharp. Sophia, you just gave birth. You should be lying in bed, getting proper rest, and not running around causing trouble for us medical staff. In these times, doctors and nurses held secure jobs, and ordinary people held them in high regard. As soon as the nurse finished speaking, an elderly woman immediately stepped forward to criticize me. Yes, girl. The hospital is incredibly busy every day, so don't cause trouble for others. The onlookers started discussing among themselves. This girl is really inconsiderate. Being able to give birth in a hospital is such a privilege, yet she doesn't appreciate it. What's the point of running around like this? She's only causing trouble for the nurses. It's not like the hospital is open just for her. The nurse, seeing that she had gained support, became even more pleased with herself, all while putting on a look of grievance on her face. Serving the people is what we should do. Her hands gripped my arm like an eagle's claws, and she called another nurse to support me on either side. Sophia, let us help you back to the ward to rest. As I passed by the elderly woman, I asked curiously, Ma'am, are you waiting for your daughter-in-law or your daughter here? Mentioning this, the woman's eyes crinkled with a smile. My daughter-in-law is inside giving birth. Her belly is pointed, so she's sure to have a big, healthy boy. Oh. I said meaningfully. Then, I raised my voice, trying to make sure the surrounding crowd could hear. Oh dear, ma'am, you really need to be careful. I suspect this hospital is stealing babies to sell them, it's absolutely inhumane. No matter the era, child traffickers are universally despised figures. My words landed like a drop of water into hot oil, causing an uproar all around. The nurse grew frantic, stamping her foot as she retorted. Who's stealing your baby to sell? You'd better have evidence for your accusations. Oh? If there's nothing to hide, why won't you let me see my child? Why are you so insistent that he was stillborn? Under my persistent questioning, the nurse took a few steps back, letting go of her grip on me as she retreated. You're really taking kindness for granted. You just gave birth, and we were worried that seeing the child would upset you. That's why we didn't let you see him. Why bother with all these details? We only did it for your own good, she said, forcing herself to hold her ground. I let out a bitter laugh, my expression filled with sorrow. That is the child I carried and gave birth to after 10 months of pregnancy, a piece of flesh that came from my own body. Do I not even have the right to see him once? I paused, then shifted the direction of my words. All your efforts to stop me from seeing my child, isn't that proof that you have something to hide? What can such a young child possibly do? Other than selling him to traffickers, I can't think of any other possibility. As the onlookers grew in number, I pressed on, adding more fuel to the fire. To be honest, my husband is a soldier, and I am so proud of him. This was our first child, and he just disappeared in your hospital. There's no sign of him, neither alive nor dead. They say hospitals are places for saving lives and healing the sick, but it seems your hospital is just a filthy den of wrongdoing. I pressed my advantage, loudly raising other suspicions about the hospital. You even dared to meddle with a soldier's child, who knows what you might do to other children. Whether the child is alive or dead, the parents deserve to see them. If everyone hides things like you, who would dare to give birth in a hospital in the future? People only stand up to express dissatisfaction when their own interests are involved. The elderly woman put away her amused expression and stood in front of the nurse, preventing her from leaving. Nurse, how is my daughter-in-law? Could you let me in to see her? Otherwise, I won't feel at ease. With the elderly woman leading the charge, the families of other mothers-to-be crowded in, bombarding them with questions about the condition of the mothers and children. The two nurses were overwhelmed by the crowd and had no time to pay attention to me. Having completed my mission, I quietly retreated, walked out of the hospital in one breath, and crossed the street to reach the post office. Hello, is this the police? I want to report. 2 hours later, I was sitting in the lobby of the Public Security Bureau, holding a cup of warm water. A police car stopped at the entrance of the Public Security Bureau. Jasper stepped out of the car with a grim face, followed by his comrade-in-arms Ben, who had once saved his life. The last one was Autumn, carefully holding the child. Sophia, what are you doing here? Jasper seemed surprised when he saw me. How could he not be surprised? According to the original plan, he should have been at the train station, watching Ben and his wife take the child back to their hometown. From then on, they would never meet again, living with a clear conscience. I smiled and dropped a bomb right into his ear. Because it was me who reported you. Jasper took a step forward, his tall frame completely overshadowing me. He lowered his voice, speaking through gritted teeth. How could you accuse Autumn of being an enemy spy? Is this something to joke about lightly? In order to intercept Mr. and Mrs. Ben as quickly as possible, I had no choice but to resort to this desperate move. Otherwise, how could I find my child back? Say the child was taken away by their father? The police would probably consider it a family dispute and not bother to intervene. Say the child was abducted by human traffickers? I haven't seen what the child looks like, nor can I describe any of their features. There are many cases of missing children, so why would mine be prioritized? So I took a big risk and reported that Autumn was an enemy agent who had fled with our army's important military secrets. I made the right bet. Jasper is just a battalion commander now, far from having the power to control everything. With the label of enemy agent pinned on Autumn, even Jasper can't easily exonerate her. How dare Jasper question me? I just want my child back. What have I done wrong? Splash, I flung the remaining water from the cup directly into Jasper's face. Tears welled up in my eyes, and his features gradually blurred. Then tell me, what am I supposed to do? You took my child away the moment I left the delivery room, conspired with doctors and nurses to lie to me, saying the child had died. You're so grateful for favors, so noble and honorable, treating my child as a gift to repay someone else. Did you ever ask for my opinion? What gives you the right? Just because you contributed 3 minutes of effort? Caught up in the heat of the moment, I spoke without thinking. The last sentence came out as a roar, echoing throughout every corner of the police station lobby. The people who heard looked embarrassed, and they all pretended to be busy without saying a word. Jasper's face turned ashen, and the atmosphere around him was as cold as an ice cellar. I knew he was angry. But I wasn't afraid, I still met his sharp gaze directly. He pulled me aside. Sophia, what nonsense are you talking about in broad daylight? Seeing that I wasn't responding, he pressed his brow and softened his tone. Sophia, that's my child too. Giving the child away is also painful for me. But Ben lost his ability to have children because he saved me. Autumn was devastated when she heard the tragic news and unfortunately had a miscarriage. If Ben hadn't saved me, who knows if I'd even be standing here safely today. A person should know how to repay kindness. Giving the child to Ben so that he can also experience the joy of fatherhood is the last thing I can do for him. Jasper always has such noble excuses. I wiped the tears from the corner of my eyes, trying hard to hide the sobs in my voice. Yes, Ben has it hard, Autumn has it hard, only I have it easy. Only I should understand all of you. Jasper, I've been married to you for 5 years and spent 4 of them in your hometown. I served your parents, took care of your siblings, managed everything inside and outside the house, and your mother still complained that I was a barren hen. But back then, you were busy building your career in the military, never coming home all year round. Who was I supposed to have a child with? You brought me to live near the base, and soon after, I got pregnant. I thought I could finally live a good life, but what did you do? You conspired with doctors and nurses to trick me into thinking the child was dead, just so you could give the baby away to ease your guilt. Jasper, are you even human? Jasper's brows were tightly furrowed, his expression grave. Sophia, the debt of a life saved is greater than heaven, and I cannot fail to repay it. If you want a child, we can have many more. I brushed his hand away. You're a man, how could you understand the hardship of carrying a child for 10 months? That child may just be a token of gratitude for you to repay a life-saving favor, but to me, he's a precious treasure connected by blood. I absolutely won't let you take my child away. No one can. I covered my stomach, walked around Jasper, and stood firmly in front of Autumn. A newborn's skin is red and wrinkled, hardly considered good-looking. But my eyes were already filled with hot tears. Because this was the first time in 2 lifetimes that I had seen my child. Sister-in-law, this is my child, please return him to me. I stretched my hand out towards Autumn. But Autumn hid behind Ben, clutching the child tightly, muttering to herself. This is my child, no one can take my child away from me. Jasper came over to stop me. Sophia, how much longer are you going to make a scene? There are no children of yours here. How can you have the nerve to ask for something back that's already been given away? In his eyes, children are just things that can be manipulated at will, mere playthings. Slap, I raised my hand and struck Jasper across the face. Staring straight into his disbelieving gaze, I spoke with a tone of mockery. And who do you think you are, daring to shout nonsense in front of me? The child Autumn is holding is mine. In an atmosphere that felt almost suffocating, I turned and confessed to the public security officers. Comrades, I lied. Autumn is not an enemy agent, she's just an ordinary person who came back to her hometown with her husband, Ben. My husband, Jasper, wanting to repay his comrade Ben for saving his life, planned behind my back to give our child to Ben and his wife to raise. To ensure the child completely follows Ben, Jasper would never let me know anything about our child. I truly had no other choice, so I called to report Autumn, hoping to use your authority to stop them and get my child back. Tears streaming down my face, I bowed deeply to the public security officers present. I accept whatever punishment you give me, but please understand the heart of a mother, let Autumn return my child. The police officers looked at each other, taken aback. They never expected that instead of catching an enemy agent, they'd be witnessing a heartbreaking scene. First, there was a life-saving debt, and now sending a child away. What kind of mess was this? Finally, Ben grasped the whole story and couldn't help but glance at Jasper. Jasper, didn't you say that your wife agreed to this? What's going on now? Jasper was speechless. This. It was all settled, but who knew Sophia would back out at the last minute? Ben waved his hand to interrupt him. All right, I get it now. Your wife never agreed at all, you were just acting on your own. Jasper, saving you was something I did willingly out of the camaraderie and brotherhood between us, not at all for your repayment. I believe that if our situations had been reversed at the time, you would have saved me without hesitation. What your sister-in-law said is right, everyone has their own struggles, and you can't expect others to understand ours. You three live your lives well together, and don't worry about me. But... Jasper hesitated, his brows furrowed with guilt. Ben smiled easily and patted Jasper on the shoulder. Don't worry, I still have 3 younger brothers back home, with plenty of nephews and nieces. Even just for the sake of money, there will be someone willing to take care of us in our old age and send us off. The deliberately carefree smile carried a touch of sorrow. How could nephews and nieces ever compare to one's own child? Nails dug into the flesh of my palm. The sharp pain instantly brought me back to my senses. I silently bowed my head and sighed. All of this was fate's cruel joke. I pitied Ben, but I would never give my child to him out of sympathy. Autumn, give the child back to the couple. Ben turned around, softly persuading Autumn. Autumn shrank back, clutching the child even tighter. Her face bore a look of stubborn madness that sent chills down one's spine. You're lying, this is my child. Look how much he resembles me. Everyone outside wants to snatch my baby away. I won't let go. Ben sat down beside her, wrapping his arm around her shoulders and gently patting her. He let out a deep sigh, the creases between his brows forming a deep character. The child belongs to Jasper and his wife. We can't just think about ourselves and separate them from their own flesh and blood. Autumn, I'm letting you down. Since you can still have children, perhaps we should divorce sooner rather than later. It's better than staying with me and having no children of our own. Autumn filtered out all other information and only heard the word divorce. Her eyes reddened as she shouted, "Divorce? You actually want to divorce me? Ben, do you even have a conscience?" Her voice was sharp, startling the child in her arms into loud wails. Ben seized the opportunity to redirect her attention. The child hasn't had a drop of milk since he was born. Look how pitifully he's crying. Why don't we let him have some milk and pick him up later? Autumn cared about the child and gradually loosened her grip under Ben's coaxing. I caught Ben's glance and stepped forward to take the child. As the baby fell into my arms, my heart swelled with a bittersweet ache. Counting my past life, we had been separated for over 20 years. The sorrow of loss and the joy of regaining what was lost surged within me all at once, bringing tears streaming down my face. I swear to myself in my heart that this time I will definitely stay by my child and watch them grow up. Since it was all a misunderstanding, the police, following standard procedure, questioned us briefly before letting us go. Ben and his wife missed their train today and decided to stay at a guest house, planning to buy tickets to return to their hometown tomorrow. On the way back to the military base, Jasper's face remained sour the whole time, as if I owed him tens of thousands of dollars. I lowered my head to soothe the child, unwilling to look at his expression. As soon as we stepped into the house, Jasper couldn't hold back any longer. Are you satisfied now? Originally, giving the child to Ben to raise could both repay him for saving my life and comfort Autumn's grief over losing her own child. With all this fuss you've made, they've ended up with nothing, and now they have to return to their hometown empty-handed. Ben has a strained relationship with his family, and his nephews and nieces won't genuinely take care of him in his old age. As brothers, how could I just stand by and watch him face a bleak future in his later years? Jasper wiped his face roughly, frustratedly accusing me. As if I had committed some unforgivable, heinous act. But I just want to raise my child myself, what's wrong with that? My body, weakened by childbirth, feels as fragile as a sieve. All the strategizing at the hospital and the heated arguments with Jasper at the police station have drained my energy. Right now, all I want is to eat a full meal and get a good night's sleep. Since Jasper has no sense of reading the room and insists on making things difficult for me, then don't blame me for hitting where it hurts. The baby drank milk and slept soundly. I placed the baby back in the bedroom, closed the door, walked over to the sofa, and sat down. You keep saying you want to repay a favor. I actually have two ways to do that, depending on which one you choose. Jasper gave me a suspicious look. I took a sip of warm water to clear my throat. First, you could render yourself infertile. You feel guilty towards Ben, thinking it's your fault that he lost his ability to have children. Why not do the same and join him? That way, neither of you can procreate, putting you both on equal footing. Don't worry, even if you lose your ability to have children, our newborn won't think any less of you. They will still care for you in your old age and ensure you have a proper farewell. Jasper, furious and embarrassed, rejected the idea outright. What kind of ridiculous suggestion is that? How would it sound if word got out that I've lost my fertility? I smiled casually and continued offering suggestions. Second, you don't need to ruin yourself. Just divorce me, and have Ben divorce Autumn. I'll remarry Ben with the child, and you remarry Autumn. This way, Ben will have a child to wear mourning attire and perform filial duties, and you can have several more children with Autumn to soothe her grief over losing her son. As the saying goes, a friend's wife is off limits. My words in this era were truly earth-shattering in their audacity. Jasper was so furious that his chest heaved up and down. I pretended not to notice and continued to fan the flames. Having babies is easy for you anyway. You can have as many as you want whenever you feel like it. A few minutes of effort and you'll have a whole group of kids, even easier than farming. Sophia. Jasper was completely enraged by my indifferent attitude. He strode over in one big step, grabbed my chin, and pinned me down on the sofa. Is divorce something to be mentioned so casually? If you're not afraid of losing face, I can't afford to be that embarrassed. Ha 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 ha, suddenly I burst out laughing, having to carefully hold my stomach to prevent the wound from splitting open. The man was like an enraged lion, his entire body seething with fury, compounded by the decisive lethality instilled by years of military service. I should have been afraid. But instead, I saw the selfish cowardice concealed beneath his facade of gratitude and loyalty. So, the high-ranking Jasper from my previous life was just an ordinary, vulgar man after all. I stopped laughing and fearlessly met his gaze. Shame? Getting a divorce is shameful, but giving away your child to repay a favor for you isn't? Jasper, you're so obsessed with repaying a favor. I've given you the ways to do it, so why won't you choose one? Because you don't want to lose your ability to have children, nor do you want a divorce at a critical moment to affect your promotion. See, you're so selfish, you'd give away a child without a second thought, but when it comes to really sacrificing something, you refuse. Jasper looked stunned, his grip gradually loosening. I tapped him on the chest and teased him. It seems your gratitude is nothing more than an empty slogan, lacking any sincerity whatsoever. Having been exposed, Jasper's face flushed bright red as he hastily retorted. What do you know? Ben and I are like brothers, he would never want to see me destroy my health. Being discharged due to injury was his greatest regret. I will carry on his dream and rise higher and further in the army, that's the only way I can truly repay him for saving my life. These words are great, glorious, and correct. Whether he believes them or not, I don't know, but anyway, I don't believe them. However, life is rarely so simple, and being overly nitpicky is pointless. Taking advantage of his guilty conscience and distraction, I pushed him away, sat up, and calmly said, I have no interest in your heartwarming brotherly bond. I just want to raise our child well. From now on, let's go our separate ways and live our own lives without interfering with each other. After saying that, I went into the kitchen to cook myself a bowl of egg noodles, leaving Jasper alone on the sofa, lost in thought. I couldn't be bothered to look at his pitiful state. After washing the dishes, I locked myself in the bedroom to tend to the child. Perhaps my words that day were too shocking, because Jasper behaved very properly over the next month. On the day I completed my postpartum confinement, Jasper specially cooked 3 dishes and a soup, saying it was to apologize to me. He ladled a bowl of chicken soup and placed it before me. "Sophia, this is an old hen I specifically asked my colleague from the logistics department to buy for you, to help you nourish yourself." His eyes were smiling, with a burning gaze, as if he couldn't wait to feed the soup into my mouth himself. Suddenly I remembered something, stopping the spoon just before my lips. "It seems the baby has woken up, let me go check." Jasper raised his hand to stop me. "I'll check it out, you hurry up and drink the soup. It won't taste good if it gets cold." I remained silent. When something seems out of the ordinary, there's usually a reason behind it. I turned around and poured that bowl of chicken soup into Jasper's bowl, stirring the spoon a few times before he came out. I wiped the corner of my mouth and smiled. "This chicken soup is delicious. You've been training hard these days, so I saved a bowl for you too. Drink up." Seeing my empty bowl, Jasper visibly let out a sigh of relief. He picked up his bowl of soup and downed it in one go. Back and forth, with plenty to eat and drink, Jasper began to reveal his true intentions. "Last week, I received a letter from Ben. In it, he said Autumn's condition isn't good, always clamoring for a child. Ben has to work and also take care of Autumn, he's really stretched thin. I've been thinking, if Autumn had a child to distract her, their lives might be easier. So I plan to send our child to Ben during this vacation. In the future. Jasper's eyelids grew heavy, and soon he slumped over the table, unable to wake up. Oh, so it was sleeping pills. Something that was often used on me in my previous life. Every time I discovered some clue about the child, he would put sleeping pills in my water and food, making me miss it entirely. This time, it's your turn to taste the sleeping pills. When Jasper woke up in the evening, I was putting the child to sleep. He rubbed his temples, saw me and the child both there, patted his head, and finally understood. "Sophia, you actually drugged me with sleeping pills." I didn't even bother to give him a glance and lazily retorted. "It's just paying you back in your own coin, why are you getting so worked up?" He let out a furious roar. "Do you have any idea how much you've messed up my plans?" "What is it?" "The big matter of sending the child away? I never thought you'd still have that treacherous idea, wanting to use my child as a favor?" I scoffed, resolute and unwavering. "As long as I'm alive for a single day, I will never let you take my child away. Since you're so determined to give Ben a child, let's get a divorce. After the divorce, you can find someone willing to have children for you, and then you can send as many as you want. Not only to Ben, you could even give children to all the infertile men in China. They would surely erect a monument in your honor, thanking you for all eternity." I'm dripping with sarcasm. Jasper slams his hand on the table to assert his authority as battalion commander. "Stop being so unreasonable, these are 2 completely different matters. Besides, I will never agree to a divorce, don't even think about it. Military marriage protections are designed to safeguard the interests of service members." But who asked Jasper to hand over his own vulnerability himself? As the one who nearly lost a child, isn't it normal for me to be so scared that I want a divorce? I've always been a person of action, once I say divorce, I mean divorce. The next day, the news of my divorce from Jasper spread throughout the entire military family compound. Sisters-in-law took turns visiting to dissuade me. Couples fight, but they always make up. What grudge can't be resolved overnight? Besides, you have a son. Even for his sake, you should keep the family together. Goodness, how can you get a divorce when the child is still so young? It's just tragic. When parents divorce, the child will be laughed at. You can't just think about your own happiness and ignore how the child feels, right? The visitors who came to witness the drama, those who tried to console me, criticize me, or speak well of Jasper, I brushed them all off. The supervisor also talked to me, saying marriage is not a game, and I should think more about our child. I wiped away my bitter tears and poured out my sorrows. If it weren't for the dire circumstances, I wouldn't want to divorce either. Ben saved Jasper's life, and I'll remember that forever. I'm more than willing to repay him. But Jasper is acting like he's under a spell. He insists on giving our newborn child to Ben, so that the child can care for Ben in his old age and attend to his funeral. On the very day I gave birth, Jasper conspired with the doctors and nurses to deceive me into thinking the child had died. In reality, they secretly gave the child to Ben. If I hadn't been clever enough to seek help from the police, I might never have seen my child again. Later, he still wouldn't give up and even put sleeping pills in my chicken soup, intending to send the child away. I clutched the handkerchief tightly in my hand as I wiped away my tears, crying until I was breathless and choking. Jasper, relying on being the child's father, has repeatedly taken matters into his own hands, trying to send the child away. While you can guard against a thief for 1,000 days, you can't do it forever, and I can't stop him every time. So, to keep my child with me, I would rather divorce Jasper. I asked for the leaders' approval. The leaders were unaware of such internal circumstances. They exchanged glances, each seeing shock reflected in the other's eyes. Marriage is a matter for two people. I insisted on getting a divorce, so the leaders could say nothing more. When Jasper heard that I was determined to divorce, he got so angry that he filed the divorce papers on the spot. On the day we completed the divorce formalities, he said viciously, "I'll just wait and see how you'll support yourself and the child. The sunshine is just right, and the air is filled with the scent of new life." I flashed a sincere smile. "No need for you to worry about it, Jasper." Holding my child, I boarded the train home. In 1 year, the college entrance exams would be reinstated. This time, I am fully capable of providing a comfortable life for my child through my own efforts. "Mommy." My son wobbled toward me while holding on to the chest of drawers, calling out to me in his sweet, childish voice. My heart melted at the sound. I scooped him up into my arms. On the table lay a medical school acceptance letter. A few years later, I graduated successfully and began working at a military hospital. Late one night, I was urgently called back to the hospital for an operation. Lying on the operating table was Jasper. I raised an eyebrow. Back when we were assigned positions after graduation, I deliberately chose a military hospital far away from Jasper. Unexpectedly, after all the twists and turns, we still ran into each other. With my thoughts swirling 1,000 times over, I gathered my focus and threw myself wholeheartedly into the surgery. By the time everything was finished, the sky was already beginning to lighten at the horizon. Jasper's leg was essentially saved, he just needed to rest and recuperate properly. His rank was not low, and the hospital director instructed me to take extra care of him. Reluctantly, I agreed. I thought wearing a mask, Jasper probably wouldn't recognize me, right? "Sophia, is that you?" After finishing the ward rounds, a hesitant inquiry came from behind. I signaled the others to leave first, turned around, and removed my mask, straightforward and unhesitant. "That's right, it's me." Jasper widened his eyes, threw off the covers, and struggled to sit up. I walked to the bedside and stopped him. "I won't let personal grudges interfere with my work. If you're not comfortable, you can request the hospital to assign another doctor." Jasper looked flustered. "No, that's not it, I wasn't thinking that. I'm just a little surprised." He rubs his fingers, carefully choosing his words. "It must have been really hard for you to raise the child alone all these years, right? It would be a lie to say it wasn't hard. Living two lives, this is the first time I've been a mother raising a child. During the day, I take the child to classes. Only after the child falls asleep at night can I delve into those voluminous professional books. Harsh winters and scorching summers, it's truly tough work, yet there's a deep satisfaction in such a fulfilling life. The hardships within need not be spoken of to outsiders, nor should they." I slide my hands into my pockets, smiling calmly. "It's all in the past now." An awkward silence filled the hospital room. Jasper spoke tentatively. "How is the child?" I thought of the little smug expression on my son's face when he came home with a perfect score on his math test the day before yesterday, and a smile unconsciously appeared at the corner of my mouth. The child is doing well, cheerful, healthy, and with good grades. I'll bring him to see you this afternoon. Sophia. Jasper called out to me. I turned around, my eyes filled with confusion. I asked around and heard you've been raising the child alone all these years. Since divorcing you, I've been living alone too. Do you think we could remarry? Without a second thought, I outright refused. Jasper was puzzled. Sophia, it's been 7 years, how much longer are you going to hold a grudge? Fine, even if it doesn't matter to you, think about our son. All his classmates have dads, only he doesn't. How do you expect him to handle that? Don't you realize how many detours a child can avoid by having a father in a high position? He spoke with such grandiosity, feigning concern for the child. I pulled out the chair and sat down. First of all, I don't hate you. Hating someone takes a lot of time and energy. I have too much else to do to waste it on hating you. I simply try to forget you. If it weren't for this surgery, I would have almost forgotten you existed. Second, you don't need to worry at all about our son feeling inferior at school. From the time he was old enough to understand, I've told him that his father bravely sacrificed himself defending our country, that he was a remarkable hero. He's very proud of you. Jasper coughed violently a few times. You actually cursed me to die? My gaze turned cold as I said with a stern expression. 7 years ago, you secretly gave our son to Ben. If you had succeeded, he would have had Ben as his only father. Wouldn't that have made you, his biological father, as good as dead? I made your wish come true, so why are you still angry? It was all my foolishness back then, but 7 years is long enough for me to realize my mistake. Mentioning the past, Jasper's demeanor faltered. Sophia, I've realized I can't let go of you or our son. I folded my arms and sneered coldly. It took you 7 years to figure out such a simple thing? I'm just an ordinary person with a child, I don't have the power to erase all traces and hide from you. If you had any heart at all, you would have sent money or something through others and taken responsibility as a father. But you didn't. Why didn't you? Was it because you felt humiliated by our divorce and wanted to see me struggle, begging for your help in disgrace? Jasper wanted to explain. No, you've got me all wrong. Old habits die hard. I saw through him long ago and didn't want to hear his excuses. If we were to meet again and you were riding high while I was down and out, you would only laugh at my foolishness for daring to divorce you back then. But the truth is, I have become one of the top doctors at the military hospital. That little masculine urge to conquer has resurfaced in you. You think your ex-wife who is now a military doctor barely qualifies for you, so you magnanimously decide to remarry me. I took a deep breath and said with great seriousness. Jasper, I'm telling you one last time, there is absolutely no chance of us getting remarried. If you keep bothering me, I will leave this place with the child. The world is vast enough, we will find a place to call our own. Jasper deflated, collapsing back onto the bed with dejection. All right, I won't bring it up again. You and the child should live a good life. In the afternoon, I took my son to visit Jasper. On the way home, my son furrowed his brow, full of confusion. Mom, Dad is clearly alive, so why did you say he sacrificed himself? I told him about what happened back then in full detail, doing my best to be fair and objective without any personal emotions. I'm sorry, Mommy lied to you. I crouched down to look him in the eye and gently stroked his head. Our son's eyes darted thoughtfully as he continued with his questions. Mommy, if Daddy had given me to Uncle Ben back then, would I never have gotten to see you again? I nodded. Unexpectedly, my son threw himself into my arms, tightly wrapping his arms around my neck, his voice muffled and choked. I don't want to be apart from Mom. Dad is bad. I won't go see him again. I held him, comforting him for quite some time, and finally managed to cheer him up with a serving of braised pork. In the kitchen, I was busy cooking while my son helped by my side. Mom, here are the scallions. Mom, I brought the rock sugar. The child's innocent voice blended with the bubbling sounds from the pot. Everything seemed just perfect. A few years later, I had already become the deputy director of the surgery department at the military district hospital and had gained some reputation in the field. Ethan, my son, also loves the medical profession. He was admitted to a top university to study medicine, aiming to eventually take over my practice. He grew into a bright and handsome young man, gentle in character yet strong-willed. He never asked about his heroic father who sacrificed himself, only seeing me as his sole anchor. That day, I was stopped at the entrance of the hospital. Jasper stood there, his temples streaked with gray, his military uniform sharply pressed, yet unable to hide the weariness in his eyes. He looked much older than he did 7 years ago, and the rank on his epaulets had stalled at regimental commander, never rising any further. Although the turmoil of the divorce was suppressed back then, rumors continued to spread in the military district. A battalion commander, in order to repay a favor, secretly gave away his child without his wife's knowledge, nearly sending his own flesh and blood away, only to later face a divorce petition from his wife who took the matter to the leadership. These words followed him like a shadow, impossible to shake off. On the list of promotions, his name was crossed out time and again. Sophia, he said, his voice hoarse and tense, showing a hesitation that hadn't been seen in years. I came to see you and the child. Holding the folder in my arms, I gave him a faint glance. Jasper, no, Regimental Commander Jasper, we no longer have any ties. Why have you come? His Adam's apple bobbed, his gaze complicated, all these years. I've been regretting it. Back then, I was blinded, thinking that repaying a favor meant giving our child away as some noble sacrifice. In truth, I just projected my own guilt onto you and the child. I was wrong, Sophia, I truly know I was wrong. I smiled slightly and said nothing. He took a deep breath and continued, I looked into Ben's news. He and Autumn later adopted a girl, and now that child is already in middle school. Ben runs a small factory back home, living a prosperous life with a happy marriage. He has never blamed me. He also sent word through someone, saying that matter is long over, and I shouldn't dwell on it anymore. I nodded slightly. Ben truly is a good man, unwilling to let others sacrifice too much for him. Jasper's voice grew softer. As for me, I've been alone all these years, stuck in my career with no one at home. Often unable to sleep at night, I recall how I carried you to the hospital the day you gave birth, how you cried while holding the child, and how you threw that glass of water at me, asking me what right I had to decide our child's fate. His eyes reddened, and for the first time, he showed such vulnerability in front of me. Sophia, I'm not asking for us to remarry, I know you won't forgive me. I just want to tell you that I regret it. I've regretted it my whole life. If heaven gave me another chance, I would never lay a finger on the child. I looked at him, and the resentment that had built up over the past 7 years suddenly faded a bit. But fading didn't mean I would soften. Jasper, whether you regret it is your business. The children and I are doing just fine, we don't need your remorse to embellish our lives. I paused, my tone calm yet resolute. Go now, and don't come back. The child is growing up, and I don't want him to see you again, lest he be reminded of those terrible memories. He stood there frozen, lips trembling, unable to utter a word of rebuttal. Finally, he gave a military salute, turned, and walked away, his desolate silhouette making him appear as though he had aged a decade in an instant. That evening, Ethan and I were having dinner. He suddenly asked, Mom, who was that man in the military uniform outside the hospital today? I noticed he kept staring at you. I put a piece of braised pork in his bowl and smiled. Just a passerby, nothing important. Ethan let out an "oh," then buried his head in his meal before looking up at me with a smile. Mom, your braised pork is the best. All my classmates are jealous that I have such an amazing and gentle mom. I patted his hair, my heart warmed as if filled with honey. Later, I heard that Jasper had retired early from the army and returned to his hometown to farm, living alone. Occasionally, he would visit Ben's house to see the adopted little girl, helping out with chores like a solitary old man. No one ever mentioned his repaying a debt of gratitude from back in the day again. All anyone remembered was that he had an ex-wife, the youngest deputy chief physician at the military hospital, who raised a son with excellent character and grades. Their lives were bright and shining, and everyone who saw them envied them. And my life has become more and more comfortable. A gentle and reliable colleague at the hospital has pursued me for 2 years. I haven't rushed to say yes, but my heart has already softened. As for the future, there's no hurry, it will always get better. This time, I not only protected my child but also safeguarded my own life. True satisfaction isn't about trampling others into the mud, but about standing in the light yourself, letting those who once hurt you watch your brilliance from afar, regretting that they were blind all along.